Today I am replacing my old metal and glass desk for a new custom desk. Hey guys, how's it going? So, I didn't need a new desk by any means, but over the last couple years of having it and also getting a little bit more into the content creation side of things, I found that it was getting a little bit more on the cramped side. And with it being glass and metal, it's a little bit more of a pain to modify. So I figured it was time to upgrade and break into the 3 of the 10 3/4 inch birch plywood sheets I picked up a couple years ago. That was supposed to be my basement bar cabinets that I just haven't gotten around to them yet. And I had the material, so I figured why not. You can check out the basement renovation playlist up here. Maybe sometime down the line, the bar build will actually be a part of it, but for now at least you can see how I restored the rotten, moldy part of the basement that corner started as. As I break down the plywood sheets per my SketchUp file on the table saw, I make sure to label each piece with what part it'll be, as well as the dimensions. I'm going to be swimming in a lot of cut pieces pretty soon, and I don't want to be cutting into something that I'm not supposed to, so that will make that process just a little bit easier. Can't do all of the breakdown on the table saw, however, so after I got all of the rip cuts finished, I get set up for the pieces that will require cross-cutting. I set up my cross-cut supports on the workbench, mark out the cut on both sides of the sheet, set up a straight edge 1 1/8 inches away from the cut line. That's to account the distance between the edge of the saw surface, table, whatever it is, the chunk of metal at the bottom of the saw that's perpendicular to the blade, the edge of that and the edge of the blade, that distance. Cover the cut line with some masking tape to prevent chip out and cut the piece to length. I was hoping that there would be enough juice in this battery to at least finish the cut, but apparently not. I worked my way through the rest of the cut list and got everything cut up and set off to the side. Now that I'm through the cut list, I can go through all of the pieces again and figure out how I want to orient all of these pieces, since that will determine which side gets edge banding or pocket holes or which side shows. I'm really trying not to mess this up. This side's the outside, that's the top, that's the front. Pocket holes here. Edge banding here. So if I screw up, it's not like I can blame anyone else. If this desk was a freestanding model, like away from the wall, it's technically freestanding as it is because it's not fastened to the wall, but you know what I mean. If that was the case, I would edge band everything, but since it's going to be in a corner, I'm not going to worry about the back sides. Sides. With everything oriented, I break out my pocket hole jig and jig a few pocket holes into the pieces that need them. Not too much else to say here, it's pocket holes, pretty simple. With the pocket hole jig out of the way, I can move on to edge banding. I'm using iron-on edge banding, and while I do still prefer solid wood edge banding, iron-on is cheaper, and as you might know, 2020 was not the year to be buying a whole lot of wood. I wouldn't have even done this project if I didn't already have the material on hand, but getting back on topic. Basically, with an iron or other heat transfer device, I guess not flame. Basically, with an iron, you want to heat up the edge banding enough to melt the glue on the back and press it into the edges of the plywood. While there is tools you can get to shave off the excess edge, I think mine is cheap and dull, and half the time it would end up tearing into the plywood veneer, which just looked like crap. I ended up resorting to a chisel to cut off the excess and some sandpaper to finesse. With the edge banding done, I move on to sanding. Since this is veneered plywood, I don't need to go too crazy. It is all pretty smooth already, and I don't want to burn through and damage the veneer more than I already have, particularly when installing the edge banding. So I just give it a quick hit with some 220 grit on the random orbit sander. And now we're on to assembly. And since I'm using pocket holes, it is quick and easy enough. Basically, just have to make sure all of the pieces are square, glue and clamp them down, and screw in the piece. You might have noticed in a couple places I had the pocket holes pointing toward the edge of the adjacent piece. It is better practice to have the pocket holes pointing away from the edge. That way the screws have a little bit better holding power. In the case of the hutch, I wasn't too concerned since these 3 vertical pieces have multiple connection points over the total height, and it's not like it's going to be in a position where it has to rack a whole lot. if at all. With the hutch now completed, I pull off all of the remaining tape and give the corners a light sanding to clean up where I had a little bit of glue squeeze out, and now I can move it into my basement finishing room along with the desk components, since the desk itself will be a little bit too big to be assembled at this point. It needs to be assembled in place, but it's technically only 5 pieces, so that's fine. Now that I have some more space to work again, I can get started on the L portion of my desk, and that is assembled pretty much the same way. My thought process behind this was that if it ever needed to be, it would be easiest to move as 3 separate pieces as opposed to one monolithic piece. And it would also allow for a little bit more flexibility in placement in case I decide I want to rearrange our office again, which I tend to do every couple of years or so. Though in the last couple virusy years, Danielle's using it a lot more than I am, so she has a little bit more of a say in how things are designed now, hence all of the plants on the wall. With the L portion done, it is also moved into the stain room, and I start giving everything a couple coats of this stain and polyurethane in one. I think I only did 2 coats overall, and maybe 3 on the main desktops. Admittedly, I did rush the finishing process a little bit on this, since I was coming up to the end of my time off and needed a desk. So the final finish I'm not 100% happy with, but I can live with it. And that is 100% on me and not the finish itself. I've used it on a number of other projects since then, and they've all turned out a lot better. But yeah, I did end up rushing this one a little bit. While the desk pieces were curing, I started disassembling my old desk and getting it out of the way. And while it was already 90% cleared off, you can tell that I had been modifying it where I could, with the melamine panel in the corner to close in the curved corner, and the melamine monitor/laptop riser, which was actually the basis of the design for the center portion of the hutch, just with a shorter bottom center support. With the old desk taken back out, I can start bringing in the pieces for the new desk for assembly, since it wouldn't fit through the door otherwise, and can start putting it together with the pocket hole screws, except I omitted the glue for the desk portion, since this way I won't have to cut it up if I ever have to take it back out of the room, if I ever wanted to refinish it or something. Probably not, but the option's there. With the desk assembled, I can bring in the hutch. After I drilled out some cable routing holes that I forgot to do earlier in the process, but neither here nor there, and followed with the L portion. Then last but not least, I can screw my giant workbench power bar underneath the desktop and can start setting everything up again, since it's at least now in a usable state. And now with a little bit of a time skip, I've added drawers to the L portion and the hutch, which I'm going to break off into my next video that you can check out up here if it's out by now. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this desk setup. It has a fair bit more usable workspace while taking up the same footprint as it did before, and it is still a lot more customizable than the old one was. I've had it for almost a year at this point, and other than drilling the odd hole here and there for mounting purposes, it's required no alterations, which is quite nice. And with that, I'm going to call it a video. Thank you all for watching, and if you like what I'm doing here, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to reading them in the comment section below. And if you want to see more up-to-date projects, you can always follow me on Instagram at John the Schreiner. Otherwise, I will see you here in the next video, and have a good one.